So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the 32nd ayah, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم واضرب لهم مثل الرجلين جعلنا لأحدهما جنتين من أعناب وحففناهما بنخل وجعلنا بينهما زرعا. And talk to them and tell them about the example of two men. And the scholars, they mention that these two men, it is most likely that they were brothers who received a large inheritance. So immediately after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the akhirah, right? He tells us now about a man who invests so much in this life, in his wealth, for the gardens of the dunya. So وَاضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلَ رَجُلَيْنِ Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, tell them about these two men. And these scholars, they say that these people had received a large inheritance, and that it's even most likely that they were even brothers. And that every time one of the brothers would spend on the dunya, the other brother would take that same amount and give it as sadaqah and invest in the akhirah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes these gardens as jannatayn min a'nab, gardens of grapes. So large, nice, luscious grapevines. Okay? وَحَفَفْنَاهُمَا بِنَخْلٍ وَجَعَلْنَا بَيْنَهُمَا زَرْعًا. And we surrounded these grapes, these fruits that are very sensitive and delicate, by large palm trees, right? As if it's fortifying an outside protection for these grapes. And even between them, gardens of other numerous crops as well. So this man has like everything covered A to Z, mashallah, in these, not just one garden, but these two gardens. Everything he could want. Okay? كِلْتَ الْجَنَّتَيْنِ آتَتْ أُكُلَهَا. That these gardens produced their harvest in full. Okay? وَلَمْ تَظْلِمْ مِنْهُ شَيْئًا. And there was never any loss for this man. And if anybody, I guess we kind of lost the art of gardening or farming these days. You go to the market and it has everything all the time, mashallah. But when you garden, do we have any gardeners here? Any people with green thumbs, as they say? Mashallah. Mashallah. We don't want to call out, mashallah, but of course, who else would have been, huh? Right? But when you garden, sometimes not everything is always completely full every season, right? You have some that bear fruit and some that, you have a lot. This man had two amazing gardens within gardens, and each one was producing full every time. MashaAllah. Right? وَلَمْ تَظْلِمْ مِنْهُ شَيْئًا. Maximum output, no loss. Okay? The best quality and the best quantity. وَفَجَّرْنَا خِلَالَهُمَا نَهَرًا. And we made for him, within these gardens, its own water source. Rivers flowing for him. So you have the best gardens, the best quality, the best quantity, and you don't have to worry about the rain. We just gave you a river right there, khalas, and it's the water source. You never have to worry about anything. Everything A to Z is taken care of for this man. وَكَانَ لَهُ ثَمَرٌ. And thus he had abundant fruits. The scholars of Tafsir here mention that this word thamar doesn't just mention referring to his gardens, but he had wealth upon wealth. Wealth upon wealth. So he had these gardens, he had houses, he had family, he had children, he had horses, he had Cadillac and Benz and Rolls Royce and mashallah everything. Okay? فَقَالَ لِصَاحِبِهِ. So he said to his friend. So one man, mashallah, everything, he's balling out. Right? So he says to his friend, وَهُوَ يُحَاوِرُهُ. And he's talking to him. And it's giving this context of, he's kind of like belittling him, right? أَنَا أَكْثَرُ مِنْكَ مَالًا وَأَعَزُّ نَفَرًا. I have more wealth than you, and even nafara, family, manpower, workers, everything else too. I'm richer than you, I'm stronger than you, I have a nicer family, my wife is more beautiful than your wife, my kids are better than your kids, they're smarter honor roll students and your kids are failing, whatever, right? So everything about me and my life is better than yours. Now what's interesting, this wealth has, as you can see, made him arrogant. Right? I have this wealth. أنا أكثر منك مالا وأعز نفرا. I did this. Now, in the earlier verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, we gave him this, we gave him this, we gave him this, we gave him grapes, we gave him date palms, we gave him water, we gave him everything that he has. And now here he is saying, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. I'm the big shot. Right? I'm everything. You know? It's all from this guy right here, me. Okay? And this shows you how wealth can lead to arrogance, and arrogance leads to kufr. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah al-Ghafir, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمُ ادْعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ. Your Lord has said, make dua to me and I'll answer you. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ عَنْ عِبَادَتِي. Those who are too arrogant to make dua to me. What happens to them? سَيَدْخُلُونَ جَهَنَّمَ دَاخِرِينَ. They will enter hellfire, right, in their state. So what does this man now say? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about him, وَدَخَلَ جَنَّتَهُ وَهُوَ ظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ. He walks into his garden and he is committing dhulm against himself. قَالَ مَا أَظُنُّ أَن تَبِيدَ هَذِهِ أَبَدًا. He walks in and he says, I don't think this would ever diminish. It's never going anywhere. This is here forever. The gardens of this life, it's here forever. Which is ironic because anyone who gardens or farms knows that within just 3-4 months you see the complete life cycle of a plant, of a tree. You see it come and you see it go within just 3 months. Right? In 3 months you see how perishable these things are. And he's thinking to himself, this is going to be here forever. And anyone who looks at a plant and says that this is going to be here forever realizes this is ridiculous. They actually say when you're visiting someone who's in the hospital, right? And they don't have too much time left, don't give them real flowers. Why? Because those real flowers will probably die before they do. And it'll remind them sometimes. And so this man here is living the same exact life. He's seeing life and death in front of him, and yet he thinks this is going to live forever. I mean, how silly is this? What kind of nonsense? He sees death constantly, and he thinks he's going to live. It's going to live forever. It's going to be here forever. It's kind of like how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, يَحْسَبُ أَنَّ مَالَهُ أَخْلَدَهُ. That the man he thinks, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala criticizes the man who is so wealthy. He's so wealthy that he thinks his wealth will make him live forever as well. Right? And everyone who has business and money knows that money comes, money goes. You know? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَهُوَ ظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ. Meaning he is harming himself. Meaning he is not able to harm Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nor is he actually harming the believer that's with him. Because remember, he's talking to his friend. And he's saying, I have this and I have this, and what are you doing? You're just a bum compared to me. Right? قَالَ مَا أَظُنُّ أَن تَبِيدَ هَذِهِ أَبَدًا. I don't think that this would ever leave. وَمَا أَظُنُّ السَّاعَةَ قَائِمَةً. And I don't think that the hour will ever come. Because this guy over here, he's talking about Allah and giving sadaqah and taqwa and all this kind of stuff. But I mean, come on. The day of judgment, come on, don't you see? What kind of fool do you think I am? And وَلَئِن رُدِدْتُ إِلَىٰ رَبِّي. And even if I did go back to my Lord, right? لَأَجِدَنَّ خَيْرًا مِنْهَا مُنْقَلَبًا. That I will find even better gardens than this. Right? Even if I did die and go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'll even have better than this. So here's the problem. He thinks he's getting all of these things because Allah loves him so much. And this is a problem. Allah gives to the believer, He gives to the disbeliever. Allah gives not based on love. He doesn't give based on love. There were prophets that were kings, and there were prophets that were poor. He doesn't give based off of love. And it's so ironic that he's thinking that even if I did go back to Allah, I would have even more than what Allah gave him in this life, but he doesn't attribute it to Allah. He's claiming it for himself. So his arrogance, he's been arrogant against Allah in this life, and he's arrogant about Allah if he makes it to the next life, for when he makes it. He's speaking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if he knows. And this is a problem. So what does his friend say? We'll talk about that inshallah next week. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remove any of the arrogance in our hearts. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those who are humbled in this life and not humiliated in the next. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala let us learn the lessons of this Quran so that we can apply it in this life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make the Quran our companion and our guide. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teach us what we do not know and remind us of what we have learned. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصل اللهم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وجزاك الله خير والسلام عليكم.